You can just start over.
T, the stem counterplan.
That's it. You only need 2 sheets of paper.
That's
Yep.
it.
Talk about why.
Nope.
No? Just 2 sheets of paper. Topicality, and then the stem counterplan. Why male line?
I will not.
All right. Is everybody ready?
He's going to start with or without you. Get ready.
Maybe James actually should have given a 1 AR that was entirely cognitive. This might be the easiest teaching I've ever given. He drops the 2 literal most important arguments I make in the 2 and C. Number 1, you have dropped affects topicality. Their weenie argument is that they are in the direction of causing immigration, the, quote, a stepping stone towards immigration, which definitionally means they are effectually topical because they do something that then leads to legal immigration afterwards. It means you vote negative. It does not matter what any of you think individually. It's just a technical concession that means it is damning and game over. They justify any act that does something that then leads to a decrease in restrictions on legal immigration. They could, for example, decide to annex Cuba and then claim that that would decrease restrictions on immigration by allowing people to then travel to Cuba. There are thousands of possible affirmatives that could result in legal immigration, which means they explode the research where to make debate untenable for the negative. Second, you have dropped the entirety of our limits impacted. That it absolutely comes first. Allowing these to act justifies anything that involves temporary immigration, which includes things like asylum status, green cards, any kind of visas, etc., which means that being negative is unmanageable. There are 185 different types of temporary visas. There are 195 different countries with dozens of different groups of people that they could allow temporary asylum into this country, which all adds up to over thousands of new affirmatives. You need a distinctly different set of answers to debate. They have conceded that negative limits control the entirety of the T debate because it is unmanageably big and they can't keep up. Debate itself becomes worthless, refers to run to terrible generics like the Neolib K, which means that debate is terrible in and of itself. Do not let Liliana answer this in the 2AR. G is going to be a dirty cheater. It was not answered in the 1AR. Ignore those answers. I do not get a 3 in R. No, do not get a 3 in R. They say our only evidence quoting from a Jeff Flake. I don't know what evidence you're reading. Our Mueller evidence about public opinions. Our Wilcox evidence from the 2 and C is a PhD philosophy professor, a court exchange evidence immigration attorney. None of those things are about Jeff Flake. They say the counterinterpret is utter garbage. Our Mueller evidence, if conceded, is more legally precise and more recent. I talked about this in cross-examination. There have been changing public opinion regarding what counts as legal immigration. It is now citizenship. Their evidence from 2010 might have been correct then, but it's not correct anymore. Their Perez evidence is from robertorequiem.blogspot.com, whatever the hell that even means. And we have evidence from PhD professors and from immigration attorneys. It means we are certainly better, more qualified and qualified. Anyways, the over-limiting argument is not true. We have a much better vision of what debate itself should look like. Remember, their interpretation creates literally thousands of possible affirmatives that are all dramatically distinct from each other that the negative would have to keep up with, which means being negative is untenable. But our interpretation limits things down to 40 possible affirmatives because there are 40 laws about legal immigration on the books in the United States that the affirmative can reduce restrictions on. That means that the debate is manageable for the negative and still equitable for the affirmative because there are still 40 possible asks they could read. They've also conceded that even if they win the entirety of the over-limiting arguments, they under-limit the topic, which is way worse because if there are only a few asks under interp, it still forces an in-depth discussion on this topic, which is way better for education. They've also conceded that negative limits have to come first. They get first and last speeches. They get infinite prep time. The 2AR is a dirty cheater. Being negative is really, really hard, which means you should be more willing to protect us than to protect them. Also, oopsie doopsie, you dropped the LA Times piece of evidence I read in the 2 and C that says that they teach us to literally be bad people. If we are not talking about legal immigration in the context of citizenship in particular, then we justify allowing prejudices and second-class treatment to these immigrants, which means they actually do not create good education. They create bad kinds of citizenship education. Also, is that limits are the controlling factor of how you think about these things. How you think about those things. Look, the problem with the 1AR is that he does not talk about the impact work very much. They could be entirely right that they have better pieces of interpretation evidence, but that does not matter if they make debate untenable for the negative because they have dropped that limits filter how you think about all of those things. And it's the only question you have to ask yourself at the end of this debate. The next argument they make is reasonability. He doesn't answer any of my arguments. It's silly. One, it demands judge intervention to determine what is and is not reasonable, which is unpredictable and still triggers our limits impact, which still shapes how you view reasonability. Two, this act is not reasonable as proven by our arguments above. Three, they have conceded the of the paradigm of reasonability itself. It presupposes that words can have multiple meanings, which, yes, is true in the real world, but does not make sense when we're talking about legal interpretations of how we should talk about the resolution, which means reasonability doesn't make sense. It's not some kind of philosophical jargon. They say the we mean argument for 2 seconds here. They obviously do not. Legal immigration means citizenship. H-1B recipients do not receive citizenship. It's just a work permit, which are Mueller and core stage evidence. Their 1AC Times of India evidence explicitly says this. Flynn read it for you in cross-examination. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. Also, their we mean argument at best is effectually topical, which I already impacted above. The STEM counterplay. Look, topicality always outweighs conditionality. They may be entirely right that our strategy was bad in this debate, but that doesn't matter because we were not able to debate them in the first place. So even if they think we were cheating, we had to cheat to keep up with them cheating in the first place, which means T comes first. You also dropped the negative flex outweighs because first last speeches and all of my arguments about neg limits being first, which also filters how you think about this.